My name is Rick Hunt. I'm Carolyn's husband, and Carolyn has been a storyteller in the Native community for many, many, many years. And together we were known as Laughing Couple. And we performed in colleges, elementary schools, powwows, conferences, you name it. We were there, all different kinds of venues. And of course, Carolyn had a stroke about three and a half years ago. So we have slowed down considerably doing storytelling. Carolyn has, she experiences what's known as aphasia, which affects her language abilities, not her intellect, but word search and being able to pronounce words sometimes orally. And so it's been a real challenge for her. And I have to say that she is remarkable in her ongoing recovery from this.
I'm Carolyn Hunt's wife. We're known as the Laughing Couple, which was a name that was given to us at a powwow we were at by a little boy we met. We couldn't remember our names, but he pretty much lived at our tent the whole weekend. And it was actually out on Kearsarge. And whenever his mother asked him, "Where are you going? Where did you disappear?" He said, "Oh, I'm over there with that Laughing Couple." So that's where our name came from. We do traditional Native storytelling with a main focus on the Northeast region, specifically Eastern and Western Abenaki stories as I get them, as they're shared with me or I find them. My husband also does drawing workshops, helping us with the pen, and we do some cultural and historic presentations as well. We talk about food sources, the clothing, pre and post contact, and that type of thing. I'm dressed in 17th century garb, which is what a Native woman would be wearing. Would be men's shirt or chemise. And the natives of the New England area were the first people who invented the wrap skirt. This one is not a wrap skirt. I didn't have quite enough fabric for that. But I'm not a historic reenactor, so I don't have to be that specific. The fabric of my shirt is from Dover Mills from the late 1700s. It's an actual pattern from that time period. I made pretty much everything I'm wearing except for the bag and my moccasins. So we do a lot of stuff. We travel all over New England. We've been in all 6 states, Eastern New York, and we've been down to Central New Jersey. So we do a lot of traveling. We do school programs, senior centers, state conferences. We've done 2 separate projects on the road with the Vermont Symphony Orchestra, including being on stage at the Flynn Theater a week after Bob Dylan was there.
That's right.
I used his bathroom.
Yeah, that was a highlight. I got a picture of you didn't know. Today I'm not doing one of the usual stories that we do. And with I gave a Highness conference and echoing the words of Charlie and Don earlier this morning, I'm going to do one version of our creation story. This is more Eastern and Western Abenaki. It came from several sources that I tried to piece together into something confusing. He came back to this place of his creation. He stood in the middle of the circle where his body was created, surrounded by 7 sparks that were left over from the lightning bolts that gave him his body and his life. And as he stood there in that circle of sparks, he looked up to Grandfather Sun, standing in the noonday sky. And he was about to call out to Grandfather Sun and ask him if he knew what Kuskomba's purpose on this earth was to be. Because all he had seen as he traversed the continent, the animals all had their own purpose. But Kuskomba did not know what his was. It wasn't clear to him what it was he needed to be doing as a being on this earth. And so he was going to call out to grandfather's son to ask him this question when he noticed a bird flying high in the sky. And this bird saw Gluskomba looking at it. And it circled and it flew down. And it landed right in front of him. And it was a large, dark bird that we recognize that has a white head and a white tail. It was the bald eagle that had come down. And it landed right in front of Gluskomba. And it said to him, "My name is Gifu. I am the bird that flies the highest in the sky. And I have been sent here to find you by Creator and Grandfather Sun and Mother Earth. I am here to be their messenger. I have been asked to come here to tell you that you will soon be joined by your family. And they will help you understand what your place in this world will be." And Gluskomba was very happy that the eagle had come down and spoken to him. He was glad to have this good news. And he watched as eagle flew away up into the sky. And as the eagle took flight, one of its feathers came loose from its body and floated down. But before it could touch the ground, Gluskomba reached out and caught it. And as he was standing there, holding that eagle feather in his hand, he felt so strong and connected to Grandfather Sun and Mother Earth and the great creative spirit. He felt strong holding it. And he kept it with him. And the feather, as we all know, is a symbol of strength, connecting our people and our prayers, as it's used in many ceremonies, with the giver of life and with Grandfather Sun and Mother Earth. And the fifth direction of creation is our second cardinal direction, which is the south. And as Gluskomba traveled around with his eagle feather, he came upon an old woman sitting on top of a large rock. And he came up to her and he said, "Who are you? Where do you come from?" And she looked at him and she said, "Gluskomba, do you not recognize me? I am your grandmother. I began my existence from this rock that I'm sitting upon early this morning. Dew formed on the surface of this rock. And with the help of the giver of life, Grandfather Sun, and Mother Earth, I was given the body of an old woman, already wise and knowledgeable. And if you respect my wisdom and my knowledge, I will help you to understand your place in this world." And Gluskomba was glad that his grandmother had come to join him. And he was grateful that he now had someone there to teach him all that there was to know about living upon the earth. And wise in many ways, Grandmother told Gluskomba she was going to teach him everything there was to know about the sky, Grandfather Sun and Grandmother Moon, the stars, the road of the spirits, that which we call the Milky Way, and so many other things. And she would teach him all about the wind and the seasons and the times and the characteristics and the behaviors of all the plants and animals. And she was going to show him how to make food and clothing and shelter. And so Gluskomba was very happy that his grandmother had come to live with him in this world. And it was not long after this, when Gluskomba was out walking about, that he saw a small, brown, furry animal scamper past. And he called out to this animal, "Brother Martin, come here. I have a favor I need to ask you." And so the pine marten came to Gluskomba and said, "Brother Gluskomba, what is it you need to ask me about?" And Gustomba's face got serious. He said, well, my little brother, I have come to ask you if you would give up your life. You see, grandmother and I need sustenance to survive. And we need to rely on your body to provide us with the food to sustain us. Grandmother and I need to rely on your body for the fur you wear that we can make into our own clothing. We need your bones so that we can make our tools. And we need your internal organs that we can use in our medicines to keep us healthy. And the pine marten sat down and thought long and hard about Gustomba's question. And the first story is a historical story. It's a very old story. It's one of our first stories. And it is how the Alnobak, the people, received fire. And back in the long ago time, you all recall, some of us a little, the land was covered with thick sheets of ice. And this is the time that this story originated. There were 3 women. There was a mother and her 2 daughters who lived high up on the mountainside where the long river flowed down through into the valley. And up on that mountainside they had a cave that they lived in at a time when the ice was thick on the land. And these 3 women had fire. And there was a grouping of people in a village down at the bottom where the river leveled out and flowed into the lakes and the oceans, where the village lived. And these people did not have fire. And without the fire, they could not survive. They had no way to heat their homes. They had no way to cook their food and keep themselves warm. And they would starve and freeze to death. And these 3 women did not want to share the fire that they owned. They kept it for themselves and did not allow the people down in the village below to share in their fire. And the leader of the village would call upon people time and again who was brave enough to go up to the mountain to seek fire from these 3 women. Because each time someone went to the mountain, to the cave where these 3 women lived, they did not come back. And the people continued to live without fire, growing more and more fearful for their survival as time went by. And soon, there were so many men who had gone to the mountain who did not come back that nobody wanted to volunteer, because it was almost certain death to go to the mountain to ask for fire. Knowing that they would fail and that people were going to die anyway, no one wanted to go. But the Sagamo, the leader of the people, he had to ask, because it was his job to take care of the entire village. And he called his people around the center of the village one last time, and he said, is there anyone who is brave enough and clever enough to go up to the cave on the mountain and bring fire back to our people so that we can survive? And even though the people were desperate, no one volunteered. And as they all sat looking around at one another, sharing in their shame and their guilt and their fears, there was a little boy who was sitting behind his mother. And he felt a tug on his robe. And when he turned around to look to see who was tugging on his robe, there sat a fox. And it seemed that he was the only one who could see this fox. And the fox spoke to him and said, if you volunteer to go and get this fire, I will help you succeed. So the little boy stood up and said, I will be the one to go and bring fire back from my people. And even though they knew the journey was long and dangerous, and the little boy was likely to not succeed where grown men had failed, even though they knew it would be the life of their child, the parents did not stop him from volunteering because they were so desperate to have the fire for their survival. And so the mother dressed the boy in the warmest robes that they had and set him off. And he walked off into the woods in the deep snow. And not too far from the village, the fox caught up with the boy and walked beside him. And the boy said, "Fox, how am I going to get fire from these people? No one has come back." And Fox said, "Do not fear. I will be with you. And when the time is right, I will help you get fire from these people." And as he walked along, the snow was very deep. And he was struggling to get through that snow, picking his feet up high. That wears you out. And the boy got tired. And he sat down in the snow and he said, "Fox, I'm too tired. I cannot go any further." And Fox said, "You need to look to the grouse. Do you see how the grouse walks on top of the snow even though it's deep? He has thick feathers on his feet to help keep him on top of the snow. You need to make your feet like those of the grouse." But the boy did not know how to do that. And the fox said, "I will show you." He took the boy to an ash tree, and he took branches and slivers of wood, and he showed him how to bend the wood into shapes and how to tie them with the roots of the spruce. And he showed the boy how to make snowshoes. And this is how snowshoes came to the people. And with these shoes on his feet, he could walk on top of the snow like the grouse. And he made good time. Soon it came to be midday, and the boy again was growing tired. And he sat down. And he said, "Fox, I am tired. I can go no further." And Fox said, "Oh no, you must not sit here and rest. If you stay here, you will freeze to death. You need to keep going." And the boy said, "Fox, I am so tired. I can't go any further. There's no hope." And Fox became angry with the boy and started nipping and growling and nipping at his heels. And the boy said, "Stop, stop, what are you doing?" And Fox only growled more and started biting at his arms and at his clothes. And the boy did not know what Fox was doing, and it scared him. So he got up and he ran. And Fox growled and nipped and bit and chased that boy. And they ran that way all the rest of the afternoon up the long river towards the mountain. And as the sun was getting low, the boy came in sight of the cave where the three women lived. And he became scared. He said, "Fox," he says, "look at that mound of white in front of the cave." He says, "It looks like snow because it's so white. But I can see that that is not snow. Those are the bones of all of the men from my village who came before me to get fire. This is all that's left of them. How will I, a poor little boy, get past these three women to get the fire when all of these men have failed?" And the fox said, "I will help you as I promised, and I have a plan." And Fox went into the woods, and he came back with 4 sticks in his mouth. And he gave the sticks to the boy, and he said, "Take these 4 sticks and put them in your shirt. Do not lose them, for you will need them later." And as the boy tucked the sticks inside his shirt underneath his big furs, the fox jumped high and leapt over the boy's head. And when he landed, he suddenly looked bigger. He looked a lot bigger. And he looked kind of scary. And the boy did not know why. And he looked down at his own hands. Guess what he saw? He did not see hands like we have. When he looked down, at the end of his arms were rabbit feet. When Fox had jumped over the head of the boy, he had turned him into a small rabbit. And before he could ask why Fox had done this, Fox looked at him up close and said, "You better run, or I'm going to eat you." And that boy was scared. And he ran up the river, past the cave where the three women lived. And soon he came to a cliff and he could run no further. And he thought for sure, Fox is going to eat me now. I've got nowhere to run. And desperate to get away, he jumped into that long river and tried to swim across. But that water, being up on the mountain, flows very fast. And that water swept him downstream. But before he could wash past the cave, hands reached out and pulled him from the water. The fox knew that at the same time, every evening, the youngest daughter would come to the river to get water for the night. And so the girl found the rabbit swimming in the river, nearly drowned. And she says, "Mother, look, I found a small rabbit drowning in the river. Can I keep him as my pet? Can I bring him inside by the fire and dry him?" And her mother said, "Yes, you may keep your pet, but keep your eyes peeled, because I can sense that there's someone out there who has come to steal our fire." And after they had their dinner, and they went inside their cave and they sat by the fire, and the girl dried the rabbit, who was the boy, and she held him in her arms while they talked in the evening. And the boy, who turned into a rabbit, pretended to be asleep. And before long, the mother said to her two daughters, "It is time for us to go to bed, but keep your ears open. Someone is about who wants to steal our fire." And so they laid out their bedrolls around the fire to guard it from all sides. And they lay down and they went to sleep after the girl had put the rabbit in the corner with his own little furs. And when the rabbit, who used to be a boy, could hear their deep, soft breathing, and he knew that they were all sound asleep, he crept forward towards the fire. And when he got up to the fire, he jumped over it. And when he did, the spell of the fox was broken, and he turned back into a boy. And being very quiet, so as not to wake the three women who were sleeping at his feet, he reached into his shirt, and he pulled out the 4 sticks. And he took the first stick, and he put it in the fire to light it. But when he did, he lit his stick, but the main fire went out. And thinking, "Oh no, I'm going to be caught now," he jumped over the person closest to the door and ran. And when he landed, his feet made a sound on the ground. And the woman woke up, and she saw the fire was out. She yelled, "Thief! Thief! Someone has stolen my fire! Stop him!" And the 2 sisters jumped up, and they saw the boy running out the door with the fire on the end of his stick. And they chased him. And that boy ran for all he was worth down that mountain in the darkness, carrying that stick as it burned down. And soon, that stick had burned down almost to his hand. And he took the second stick, and as he's running, he lit it. And he threw the first stick behind him, just as they were about to reach and catch him. And the 3 women grabbed for that fire, but that burning stick eluded their fingers, and it fell into the snow, and it went out. And again they chased that boy, carrying that second burning stick. And as he ran down the mountain, he was tripping and stumbling in the snow and the dark, and he was getting tired because he had run up the mountain the day before. And they were gaining on him. And his second stick was burning low. So again, he took another stick from his shirt, the 3rd stick, and he lit it from the 2nd stick. And he threw the 2nd stick away from him. And the 3 women who were chasing him, the woman and her daughters, went after that 2nd stick. But again, it fell to the ground and melted in the snow and went out before they could catch it. And they were furious now. They were desperate because that boy had their fire. And they set anew to pursue him with every ounce of strength they had. And that boy ran for his life with that stick burning down in his hand. And he knew that those 4 sticks were not going to stay lit long enough for him to reach his village. And he was getting desperate. He didn't know what to do. All he could do was run as that stick burned down and down and down. And as that stick burned close to his hand, he pulled out the last stick, and he lit it from the 3rd, as the 3rd stick went out in his hand. And he looked up, and Fox was running by his side. Fox said, "Boy, give me that stick. You will not make it." And the boy gave the stick to Fox, and he fell down in the snow, exhausted. And those three women ran right past him. They didn't even see him. All they saw was that burning stick that Fox now carried in his mouth. And Fox ran for all he was worth, just as quick as a flash, down the mountain through the snow. But he too knew he was not going to make it to the village. And as he ran down that mountain, that stick burned shorter and shorter and shorter still. And soon he was carrying a short flaming stick in his mouth, burning his mouth. And that is why to this day, the red fox is black around his mouth, from where he was singed by the fire. But still he carried that fire. And just as the three women were about to catch him, Fox took a sharp left, and he took that fire from his mouth and he threw it into a cedar tree. And the tree swallowed that burning stick. And those three women, they tried to get that fire out of that wood, but they did not know how. Cedar tree would not give up the fire to them. They clawed and scratched at that tree. They hacked at it with their tools and their weapons and sticks and rocks. They broke its bark and tore its branches. And still, cedar tree would not give them the fire. They offered it tobacco, and they begged and pleaded and sang to the tree, trying to placate it into giving them fire. But that tree would not give them back their fire. And by the time the sun came up the next day, those three women knew that they were defeated, that cedar tree would never give them their sacred fire back. And knowing that they would have to struggle like the people in the village before them, in the cold, with no heat, they slowly made their way back up to their cave in the mountain. And by now, the boy had come down the mountain. He had followed Fox's tracks through the snow. And he found Fox resting at the foot of that cedar tree. He said, "Fox, what did you do with the fire? Did they get it?" And Fox said, "No, my friend. I did not let them get the fire. It's inside the tree." "Inside the tree? What do you mean the fire's inside the tree? We can't use a fire if it's inside the tree. I need to bring it home. How do I get the tree to give it up?" And Fox said, "Not to worry. I know how to make the cedar tree give you back your fire." And so he showed the boy how to take a piece of wood from the broken branch of the cedar tree that the woman had left on the ground, and to lay it in his lap. And he took a piece of spruce root, long, thin root, and he showed him how to tie it onto a stick. And he showed him how to take a third stick, also from the cedar tree, and wrap the string around it, and set the end in the block of cedar wood that was in his lap, and to roll that stick back and forth. And as that one stick twirled inside the block of that other wood, the tree, the cedar wood, gave up the fire to the people. And so the fox taught the boy how to make fire from the cedar tree. And the boy took this information back to his people and showed them how to make fire. And this is how, to this day, the Abenaki people, the Alnobak, our descendants and our ancestors, all have survived because we have fire with the help of Fox. And that is the story of how Alnobak received their fire. What do you think of that one?
Angie Bowie, tell us a little bit about how you met Carolyn. It's really fun to have you be part of this project. So I want to thank you and allow you to speak from your heart.
Well, Deb, first of all, it's lovely to be doing this with you. I'm afraid I have to shatter some illusions. I was chasing Carolyn for her stories for 6 years. I made her a proposition about actually publishing them. And we talked about it and we went back and forth. But basically, I think the reason we never finalized a deal was because Carolyn thought it would be great if she did the drawings of the animals she was telling the stories about.
Uh-huh. Yeah.
And because she had so many, other interests and things on her plate with Laughing Couple and her art and her sewing and just all the things that Carolyn does. I mean, you know this. I know you guys have been friends for years. So I didn't want to be pushy. You know what I mean? I'm not like that. If I get an idea, I think if it's meant to be, it'll all happen. So then I got very excited because I thought, well, something wonderful is going to happen with these animal stories, because I was first introduced to them through the Laughing Couple videos. So I got to see Rick and her working in tandem and telling these wonderful stories. And so I was very thrilled about it. And then when this all started happening and Carolyn became unwell, I was absolutely certain that she will, and I know you are too, make a full recovery. I know the aphasia is daunting at this present time, but I just feel that the artist that she is will overcome, and she will regain her ability to speak as clearly as she did on stage every time they did a show. You know what I mean? And I yearn for that moment, and I look forward to it. And I'm so happy that it gives all of us an opportunity to honor her by all these wonderful narrators and storytellers you've assembled, Deb. It's so impressive. It's just amazing. Thank you for asking me, because I feel a bit of an outsider and very honored that I should be considered and asked to do this and to participate with all of you.
Well, thank you. We're really excited to have you be part of this project. And I know you have a fantastic story that you're going to read today. So tell us about the story.
Well, it's funny, when you are doing your own readings and your own poetry, I tend to be very cavalier about it. I don't read it beforehand. I don't do anything like that because I wrote it. You know what I mean? And so I just think, well, that would be great. But with Carolyn's, it was wonderful. It was like having a script. I thought I put aside yesterday and I put aside this morning to rehearse. And I did. And it was great fun because of the structure. I'm always intrigued by the structure of folks' essays. And this is almost a lyrical poem. So, if I call it an essay, it's not an insult, it's a compliment. And if I call it a poem, that's a compliment too. So I hope that's not, in any way, anything but laudatory and giving Carolyn all the kudos that she deserves, because I think these stories, these animal stories, are quite remarkable, and I'm sure they're part of a tradition that I will learn more and more about the better I get to know the customs of how these stories are relayed to children, relayed to folks around the fire, relayed during the winter months, all those times when we think of how we want to have entertainment of that wild, natural type where someone tells you a story. And these are wonderful because they're not ghost stories. These are animal stories. I adore it, Deb, and I know you do, because you've had such a wonderful focus of cataloging the Laughing Couple and all the work that Carolyn has done. And this must be very fun and exciting and satisfying for you to get to this point in making these shows.
Oh, yeah. It's really an honor to do so. And we are trying our best to document, bring in the archives of some of the videos that were produced by other videographers in the past, and we've gotten permission to use some of that footage. So it's really fun to bring in the archives, is what I'd like to do also, as I work on and edit with your reading today, is to bring in the voice of Carolyn herself from about 10 years ago.
Yes. Well, now that's daunting. You've said that. Because now you put me on the spot, and I've got a way I'm going to do it. So I hope that it will not have any, what's the word I want? Discomfort between the two ways of presenting. But I'm an actor, so Carolyn is the writer. So the way she does it is the original way. I'm the actor interpreting it, the narrator, and she's my friend. So I just want to make her happy, make you happy, and do everyone justice. Is that okay?
That's great. Thank you so much for being with us today, Angie.
Oh, you're welcome. I'm delighted. Would you like me to start now?
Yes, sure.
Carolyn Black Hunt, amongst all the wonderful stories that she's written, allowed me to read or to speak, to narrate this story to you of how Bear lost his tail. Many people wonder why the star bear, now called Ursa Major, has a long tail. No species of bear living today has a long tail. No fossil records of ancient bears have discovered a bear with a long tail. So why does Star Bear have one? In the time when Mother Earth was very young and people did not yet exist, Bear did have a long tail. Bear has a luxuriantly furry tail. It could even be said that Bear's tail was one of the finest of all the animal tails. In fact, it was the finest tail in all animaldom. Bear's tail was covered with lush, shiny blue-black fur, and Bear was very proud of his beautiful appendage. Wherever Bear went, he was sure to carry his fluffy, long tail high behind himself, slowly waving it back and forth. He wanted to be sure that everywhere he went, everyone saw his beautiful tail. And see it they did. The birds and animals of the early world would compliment Bear on what a fine tail he had. They would comment on how deeply black it was, blacker than the night sky. They would compliment him on how full and thick it was. They would compliment him on how lucky he was to have the finest tail they had ever seen. And Bear, as proud as he was, would always smile shyly and thank each and every complimenter. But not everyone was so impressed with Bear's tail. Fox had an equally full and luxuriant tail. Granted, this was not as long as Bear's tail was, but that is because Bear is simply bigger than Fox. Fox believed his own tail was far superior because it was the color of fire. It was the color of the sky on a glowing orange morning. Fox also got lots of compliments on his own tail, but being second best was not good enough for Fox. He was jealous of Bear's beautiful long tail. Oh, how to make his own tail the best. One day, Fox had an idea come into his head. His idea was on how to get rid, Bear, of his long tail, so that everyone would admire Fox's tail instead. But he had to think quickly, as winter was fast approaching, and Bear would soon head into hibernation until spring. One morning, Fox awoke, knowing just what he had to do. And just in time, too. The nights were getting colder. The air carried the scent of coming snows. Early the next day, Fox went to the house of Otter and traded with him for several large fish. Tying them all together, Fox then went to a nearby pond. Here he dug a hole in the ice and lay the fish beside it. Then he waited for Bear to come walking past, as he did each day. It was mid-afternoon when Bear, finally walking along the trail that went past the pond. When Fox saw Bear coming, he dropped the length of his tail deep into the hole in the ice. Then he acted casual. "Hello, Bear," greeted Fox as Bear passed by. "Hello, Fox," Bear replied. "Say," Bear's eyes had spotted the fish laying on the ground beside Fox. "Where did you get so many fine-looking fish?" "Oh, right here in this hole in the ice." Fox pulled his wet tail from the hole and showed the hole to Bear. "But you have no pole. How are you catching them?" "I have no need of a pole. I have discovered that the fish of this pond are extremely fond of long, fluffy tails. All I have to do is drop my tail into the hole. Then I wriggle just the very tip of it. When the fish see my wiggling tail, they bite onto it, and that is when I yank my tail from the water and catch these fine fish." "Oh my," replied the Bear. Surely it can't be that easy." "Oh, it is that easy," exclaimed Fox. "Just look at all these fat fish I have caught today." Bear looked at all of the fish Fox had caught with his tail. His mouth began to water as he thought of what a fine meal they would certainly make. "Do you think it will work with my tail?" asked Bear. "With your magnificent tail, Bear, you should be able to catch twice as many fish as I can," Fox told him. "But I believe I have taken all of the fish from this end of the pond. We should go out to the center, where you will have more room for your much longer and fuller tail." Bear, anxious to try fishing without a pole, eagerly nodded his head. Fox picked up his fish and headed towards the middle of the frozen pond, with Bear close behind. Once there, Fox dug a new hole in the ice, as he explained that it must be no bigger than the tail that goes into it. When he had the hole finished, Fox invited Bear to drop his tail in. "But Fox, isn't the water a bit cold?" asked Bear. "Oh, Bear," replied Fox, "with a tail as thickly covered as yours, you should have no worries about feeling cold." Hesitantly, Bear eased his tail into the hole. As he had thought, he could feel the coldness of the water, but he did not want Fox to know that his tail felt cold, so he said nothing about it. "How long until the fish bite?" asked Bear, trying hard to keep his teeth from chattering. "Not very long. Just keep wiggling the tip back and forth. Once the fish notice it, you won't be able to catch them all fast enough." "Well, I'll leave you to it. I've already caught enough to have a feast for tonight's dinner. Now remember, it might take a little while. for them to notice your tail is there. Be patient. When you feel the fish bite your tail, pull it out of the water as fast as you can. Soon after, you will have enough fish for your own feast tonight. Fox smiled to himself as he picked up his fish and turned to go. Thank you, my brother, for teaching me this new way of fishing. It is very kind of you to share this new skill with me, Bear said as Fox was leaving. Don't mention it, said Fox as he trotted away, leaving Bear sitting in the middle of a frozen pond, his tail submerged below the ice. He chuckled to himself at Bear's gullibility as he trotted off. The next morning when Fox awoke, he saw that the world was covered in white. It had snowed during the night. He laughed to himself as the fine trick he had pulled on Bear the day before. Maybe this would teach that silly Bear that his own tail was not really so fine after all. Still enjoying the joke he had played on Bear, Fox decided to go past the pond to Bear's house and see how many fish he had actually caught with his tail. As he passed by the pond, he glanced out towards the middle, where he had left Bear the day before. To his surprise, there was a large mound of snow in the very spot where he had left Bear. Could it be? Could Bear still be sitting on the hole in the ice since yesterday? Slipping by on silent feet, Fox approached the large mound of snow. Very gently, he pressed his ear against the mound. Sure enough, he could hear the sound of faint snoring coming from the snow mound. This was better than Fox had ever dreamed it was. Bear had spent the night sitting with his tail dropped into the ice-cold water of the pond. What a fool he will look to everyone when he shared this story of Bear's foolishness. It was all Fox could do not to laugh out loud. Fox leaned in very close to the snowy mound that was Bear. Cupping his paws around his mouth, he yelled right in Bear's ear, "Bear, wake up! You've caught a fish! Pull your tail out of the water!" Bear awoke with a great start. A fish! He had caught a fish! He pulled with all his might to bring the fish up out of the hole. A very loud pop was heard. "Bear," yelled Fox, "where is your fish? Where is your fish?" Bear, still half asleep, began looking around him for the fish he believed he had caught, but he could find no fish. Instead, he found a fluff of jet black fur sticking up from the ice where he had been sitting. The hole had frozen over during the night, even with Bear's warm body sitting upon it. Bear turned and looked at Fox, confusion written all over his face, and there sat Fox, his paws over his mouth, his eyes as big as the moon, looking back at Bear. Bear looked over his shoulder to see what it was that Fox was staring at so incredulously. And there, where his luxuriant black tail should have been, was nothing. Bear looked from Fox to the place where the hole had been, where now there was nothing but ice holding a tuft of jet black fur. Fox was rolling in the snow, holding his middle and laughing so hard he made no sound. As Bear came to the realization that the cold had snapped his beautiful tail off, Bear let out a mighty roar of surprise and anger. Still laughing, Fox jumped up from the snow and bolted towards the shoreline. Bear was hot on his heels, kicking up great clouds of snow as he charged after Fox. But Fox was lighter and quicker. Bear watched as Fox disappeared into the forest, his laughter trailing along behind him. And this is the reason why bears today have no tails. It is also the reason why whenever Bear is around, Fox is nowhere to be seen. And our friend Bear, he still moans over the loss of his tail.
Oh, terrific.
Thank you, Carolyn Black Hunt, for the most wonderful story, isn't it, Deb?
Oh, yeah, it's great. I love how she just brings the animals to life,
Yes,
and you know, we can really appreciate all their feelings, and I think that's the basis of learning the lessons is to imagine what it feels like to be those animals.
Well, and it also gives one equality to the species, doesn't it?
Oh, yeah.
Everyone in every form is just as interesting and important as each other.
Yeah. Oh, thank you so much for participating and reading one of Carolyn's stories. We all appreciate her work over the years, and we're just continuing. This is a work in progress. We have another filming scheduled for next month, and we're going to continue reading Carolyn's stories. So thank you for participating in this project, Angie Bowie.
Thank you for asking me. I was very honored, and I hope that I delivered what you and Carolyn wanted.
Absolutely. It was just perfect.
My name is Kelly Mowers, and soon to be Novak, and I am Micmac. And I did not know that for many years because I live in New England. And in New England, you were told to go underground. You were not native because there were too many other people here that wanted you. So we did not have open tribes. We did not have open history. We did not have anything except for whisperings. Lenny, Abenaki, and Algonquin was told to stay with the land. We were denied